The meeting that changed everything. The night was calm and the streets of downtown Los Angeles were glowing under the soft light of the lamps. Keanu Reeves had just finished a long day of work on set. His mind was heavy, his body tired, yet he decided to walk instead of taking his car. Walking always gave him peace, and it reminded him of the simplicity he had always valued more than fame or money. As he crossed a small alley, he noticed a man sitting on the sidewalk. The figure was thin, covered with an old blanket, and holding a small paper cup. The man's head was bowed down, and most people passing by did not even glance at him. But something in the way he held himself caught Keanu's eyes. There was a strange familiarity in the curve of his shoulders and the tired way he looked at the ground. Keanu stopped, and for a few seconds he just stood there, trying to place the memory that was pulling at his heart. Then the man lifted his face slightly, and Keanu froze. The years had changed him, but the eyes were the same. It was Chris, his childhood friend, the boy he used to play ball with on the dusty streets of Toronto. Keanu felt his chest tighten. He remembered Chris as the one who always encouraged him, who believed in his dreams when nobody else did. But now, Chris was here, living on the street, forgotten by the world. He bent down gently and whispered, "Chris, is it really you?" The man blinked, then looked closer. At first, his eyes seemed confused, but then they widened. "Keanu?" His voice cracked, almost in disbelief. Keanu sat down beside him without caring about the looks of strangers. He felt a wave of emotion he could not hold back. "What happened, brother? How did life bring you here?" Tears formed in Chris's tired eyes. He tried to speak, but the words broke apart. "Life, it just fell apart. Work was lost. Family drifted away. One mistake after another. I couldn't get back up." Keanu placed his hand on Chris's shoulder. "You stood by me when I had nothing. Do you think I will walk past you now? Never." His voice was steady, but his heart was trembling. People were staring now, some even whispering, surprised to see a famous actor sitting beside a homeless man. But Keanu did not care. For him, it wasn't about image or reputation. It was about friendship, loyalty, and respect. For the next hour, Keanu and Chris spoke about their past, their childhood dreams, and the years that had been lost. Every word carried both pain and hope. As the night grew deeper, Keanu made a quiet promise to himself. He would not let his friend remain forgotten. The world might have turned away, but he would not. What Keanu did not know was that this simple meeting would lead to a series of events that would shock him more than anything he had ever faced. This was not just a reunion. It was the beginning of a journey filled with twists, hidden truths, and lessons about kindness and resilience that would touch millions of hearts. And as Keanu stood to leave that night, he whispered one last thing to Chris. "Tomorrow, your life will not be the same." The next morning, Keanu woke up earlier than usual. The memory of Chris's tired face would not leave his mind. He had seen many heartbreaking things in his life, but this was different. This was personal. This was a part of his own past, now staring at him in pain. As he sat with his morning coffee, he thought about their childhood. He remembered how Chris used to share his lunch when Keanu had none. He remembered the afternoons when they would sit on broken steps and dream about the future. Keanu always said he wanted to act, and Chris would clap his hands and say, "You'll make it, brother. I believe in you." It was that faith, those words, that had carried Keanu through his hardest years. But now the roles were reversed. Chris was broken, and it was Keanu's turn to believe for him. He called his driver, but then stopped. "No," he thought, "I will go myself." He wanted to meet Chris not as a celebrity with a bodyguard, but as a friend who still cared. The city was waking up when Keanu returned to that small street. The early sun stretched its light across the cracked pavement. There were fewer people now, but Keanu could still see the familiar figure wrapped in that old blanket. Keanu walked closer and sat down again beside him. "Good morning, Chris." Chris looked up surprised. His eyes were red, but a faint smile appeared. "I thought maybe it was just a dream," he whispered. "Not a dream," Keanu replied softly. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." They talked again, but this time, Keanu asked harder questions. "Do you have anyone you can call? Any family, any friends left?" Chris lowered his head. "Nobody. When I lost my job, people stopped answering. I kept trying, but after a while, you get tired of knocking on doors that never open. Keanu's heart ached at the quiet truth in those words. He felt anger, too. Not at Chris, but at a world that could turn its back on someone so kind. As they spoke, a small group of bystanders began to gather. Some recognized Keanu instantly, and whispers spread. A young man took out his phone, but Keanu raised his hand and shook his head gently, asking silently for respect. Surprisingly, the man lowered his phone. The crowd, instead of pushing forward, stood quietly, watching something they had not expected to see. A Hollywood star sitting humbly beside a forgotten man. Listening with all his heart, Keanu finally said, "Chris, you once told me never to give up, even when things were impossible. You told me kindness always finds its way back. I think it's time you believe those words again." Chris shook his head slowly. "But I don't know how to start again. I don't even know who I am anymore." Keanu placed his hand firmly on his shoulder. "You are my brother. That's who you are. And if I could start from nothing, so can you. But this time, you won't be alone." In that moment, something shifted. It wasn't a full spark of hope, but it was the beginning of one. Keanu stood up and said, "Come with me. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Let's change this story together." But Chris hesitated. His eyes darted to the cup in front of him, with only a few coins inside. "This is all I have," he whispered. "This life, as painful as it is the only one I know now." Keanu's voice was steady, but his heart was trembling. "You once gave me strength when I had none. Please let me give it back." "Don't say no, Chris." "Not today." The street was quiet. The crowd was silent. Chris closed his eyes, and for a long moment it seemed like he might refuse. But then, with a slow, shaking breath, he nodded. Keanu smiled, but deep inside he felt something else too, an uneasiness he couldn't explain. As if this journey he was stepping into with Chris was going to uncover truths far bigger than just helping a friend. And he was right. The shock waiting for him would not only change how he saw his friend, but how he saw himself, his past, and the very meaning of loyalty. The ride from that street to Keanu's apartment was silent at first. Chris sat in the back seat, his hands gripping the old blanket as if it was his last piece of safety. His eyes kept darting toward the window, as though he could not believe he was really leaving behind the corner he had called home for years. Keanu sat beside him, watching carefully, not speaking too much. He knew sometimes silence was kinder than words. As they drove through the wide roads of Los Angeles, Keanu's mind drifted back to the boy he had once known. Chris had been full of laughter, full of wild ideas, the kind of friend who could make the world seem lighter even on the hardest days. And yet here he was, bent under invisible weight. Keanu wondered, how many people like Chris existed right now in this very city, unnoticed and unheard? That thought pierced him deeply. When they finally reached Keanu's home, Chris hesitated to step out of the car. The building towered high with glass that reflected the bright morning sky. It felt like another world compared to the cracked pavement he had just left. "This isn't for me," Chris muttered. "This place, I don't belong here." Keanu turned to him with calm eyes. "You belong wherever kindness welcomes you, and this door will always be open to you." Slowly, Chris followed him inside. The moment he entered, he looked overwhelmed. The polished floors, the quiet hum of the air conditioning, the faint smell of coffee. It was a universe he hadn't touched in years. He stood frozen, his hands tightening around the blanket, afraid he might break something by simply being there. Keanu guided him gently to the kitchen and poured 2 cups of tea. "This isn't about luxury, Chris. It's about starting again. One step, one sip, one moment at a time." As they sat, Keanu tried to lighten the mood. "Do you remember when we used to steal extra fries from the cafeteria and get caught every time?" Chris chuckled faintly. "And you always blamed me," he replied, shaking his head. For a moment, a small spark of the old Chris returned, and Keanu felt hope flicker inside him. But soon, the silence returned, heavier than before. Chris finally said, "You don't understand, Keanu. People see me as nothing. Once you're thrown out of society, it's like you're invisible. Even if you scream, no one listens." His voice cracked and he looked away. Keanu leaned forward. "Then let me be the one who listens. And not just me. Maybe the world forgot you, but I didn't. I never will. Before Chris could respond, there was a knock at the door. Keanu stood up, surprised. When he opened it, he found a delivery man holding a large envelope addressed not to Keanu, but to Chris. Keanu frowned. He had no idea how something could have arrived here for his friend, especially when nobody was supposed to know. He handed it to Chris carefully. "This is for you." Chris stared at the envelope, confused. His hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside were a few folded papers. As he read, his face turned pale. "What is it?" Keanu asked softly. Chris's voice shook. It's from someone I used to know. Someone who disappeared from my life years ago. And now, they're asking for me. They know where I am. They want to meet." Keanu felt a chill run down his spine. The timing was too strange. Yesterday, he had found his childhood friend after so many years, and today, an envelope from the shadows of Chris's past arrived at his own doorstep. He looked at Chris, whose hands were still trembling. "Do you trust this person?" Chris hesitated. "Once, yes, but now, I don't know anymore." Keanu sat back slowly, his mind racing. Something about this was more than coincidence. Something was waiting to unfold, and deep inside, he sensed that the truth hidden inside those papers might not only change Chris's life, but shake his own as well. Chris kept staring at the papers, his lips moving silently as if trying to form words that refused to come out. Keanu watched him carefully, his own heartbeat slowing, heavy with a sense of unease. The morning sunlight filled the room, but the air felt strangely cold. Finally, Chris placed the letter down on the table with shaking hands. "Keanu, this isn't just some ordinary message. This person knows things about me that I never told anyone. Things I buried long ago." His voice was uneven, filled with both fear and disbelief. Keanu leaned closer. "Then you have to tell me. If we are going to face this, we face it together." Chris closed his eyes for a long moment. "Before I lost everything, I worked for a company. Not just any company. It was connected to people with power, money, influence. I saw things I wasn't supposed to see. I tried to speak up once, but it ruined me. After that, doors shut in my face, one after another, until there was nothing left. I thought I was forgotten. But this letter, it proves I was never forgotten. Someone was watching me all along." Keanu felt the weight of those words. He had expected stories of mistakes, maybe lost jobs or broken family ties. But this sounded bigger, darker, something that reached far beyond personal failure. "And this person who wrote to you," Keanu asked quietly, "do you think they want to help? Or to silence you?" Chris swallowed hard. "I don't know. But they said one thing. They want to meet me tomorrow night at the old railway yard, alone." Keanu frowned instantly. "That sounds dangerous. Why would they ask you to go alone?" Chris shook his head. "Maybe because they don't trust anyone else. Maybe because they know I have nothing left to lose." Keanu placed a steady hand on his friend's arm. "You're wrong about one thing. You're not alone anymore. If you go, I go. Whatever this is, we face it together." Chris's eyes watered, but he nodded slowly, the fight inside him not completely gone. The rest of the day passed in heavy silence. Keanu tried to make him comfortable, giving him fresh clothes, a warm shower, and food that wasn't from the street. But even as Chris sat on the soft couch, sipping tea, his eyes kept drifting to the letter on the table. It was as if the paper itself carried a shadow that refused to leave. That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the moment he had found Chris on the street. Was it fate? Or was it part of something larger, something that had been waiting to unfold? He thought about all the people who had come and gone from his life, the moments when kindness had been his only compass. And now, here was his childhood friend, pulled back into his world by both chance and something darker. When dawn broke, Keanu found Chris already awake, staring out of the window. His voice was quiet but firm. "Keanu, I can't run from this. If I don't go tomorrow night, I'll never know the truth. And the truth is the only thing I have left to fight for." Keanu nodded, though worry tightened every muscle in his body. "Then we go. But we won't walk into this blind. I'll make sure we're ready for whatever we face." As the sun rose higher, painting the sky with gold, Keanu realized something important. This was no longer about just helping a homeless friend. This was about uncovering secrets that had chased his friend into the shadows, and by stepping into it, Keanu himself might be pulled into a storm he never expected. The letter had not only reopened Chris's past, it had opened a door to a hidden world, and once they walked through it, there would be no turning back. The day of the meeting arrived, and Keanu felt a heaviness in the air, as if the city itself knew something was about to happen. The hours passed slower than usual. Every tick of the clock echoed like a warning. Keanu watched Chris carefully all morning, noticing the way his hands shook when he tried to drink tea, the way his eyes never seemed to rest on one place for too long. As the sun went down, the atmosphere grew colder. Keanu prepared in silence, putting on simple clothes so he would not stand out. He carried no guards, no cameras, no attention. This wasn't Hollywood, it was real life, raw and unpredictable. Chris wrapped his blanket tighter around him, almost like armor, though they both knew it could not protect him. When the night fell, they drove together to the old railway yard. The place was abandoned, covered in rust and shadows. Broken street lamps flickered weakly, and the sound of distant trains rumbled like thunder far away. The air smelled of metal and forgotten stories. Chris's breath grew shallow as they walked deeper into the yard. "This was where I used to come as a kid," he whispered. "We played here, remember? We made castles out of broken crates and pretended we ruled the world." Keanu smiled faintly, remembering, but the memory was quickly swallowed by the present moment. "Then tonight, let's make it a place where you take your life back." Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the far end of the yard. A figure appeared, slowly stepping into the dim light. It was a tall man wearing a long coat, his face partially hidden by a scarf. "You came," the man said, his voice deep, carrying both relief and tension. "I wasn't sure you would." Chris froze, his eyes widening. "Michael?" he whispered. Keanu glanced at his friend. "Who is he?" Chris's voice was shaky. "He used to work with me back then. He was one of the only people who knew what I saw." The man stepped closer, lowering the scarf slightly. His face was older, marked by scars of a life lived on the edge. "I had to disappear, Chris. They were watching me too, but I never forgot you. And now they're moving again. The people we once tried to expose. They know you survived. They know you're still here." Keanu felt the air tighten around them. "And what do they want now?" he asked firmly. Michael's eyes darkened. "They want silence. Permanent silence. But I've been collecting proof all these years, and I need Chris to help me bring it out. He remembers things I cannot prove alone." Chris's face went pale. "If they know I'm alive, then meeting you here tonight, it means they're watching us right now." As if on cue, the sound of movement came from the shadows. More footsteps, heavier this time. The rustle of coats, the echo of boots on gravel. Keanu turned sharply, his instincts sharpened. 3 men appeared from the darkness, their expressions hard, their presence cold. "It didn't take much to predict this," one of them said. "You always had a way of finding trouble, Michael, and dragging others down with you." Keanu stood in front of Chris without hesitation, his body tense but calm. "If you came here to threaten him, you'll have to go through me." The man smirked. "Keanu Reeves, the actor who plays heroes. But this isn't a movie. This is reality. And in reality, people like you can't protect everyone." Chris gripped Keanu's sleeve. "Keanu, don't—" But Keanu didn't move aside. His voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. "You're wrong. In reality, kindness and loyalty are stronger than fear. You'll see that tonight." The yard fell silent, the air filled with tension so sharp it could cut. Michael's eyes darted between the men, knowing what was about to happen. And then, with one sudden step forward, the man in the coat whispered words that changed everything. "They don't just want Chris. They want you too, Keanu. Because your name, your voice, it could destroy them if the truth comes out." Keanu's heart pounded. He had stepped into something far greater than he imagined. What began as an act of kindness toward a forgotten friend had now become a battle against powers hidden in the dark. And the night was only beginning. The men moved closer, their shadows stretching across the broken tracks of the railway yard. Chris stood frozen, his body trembling, while Michael's eyes searched the darkness for a way out. Keanu stayed calm, though inside his mind raced. He had faced chaos before, but this was different. This was not a movie set, and there were no second takes. One of the men stepped forward. "Hand over the papers, Michael. You know what we want. Give them to us, and maybe we let you walk away." Michael's voice cracked, but his words were sharp. "If I give you the proof, the world will never know what you've done. You built your empire on lies, and you ruined lives, including his," he said, pointing at Chris. "Not anymore." Keanu spoke firmly, his voice steady in the night air. "If you think fear can silence truth, you are wrong. I've seen broken people rise again. I've seen kindness win where cruelty tried to destroy. Tonight won't be any different." The men looked at each other, then at Keanu, and for a moment, hesitation flickered in their eyes. They had expected fear, not defiance. Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness. Several cars pulled into the yard, their engines roaring. Police officers stepped out, their flashlights slicing through the shadows. Michael smiled faintly. "I told you I wasn't working alone." The men tried to run, but the officers moved quickly, surrounding them. Within minutes, the danger was over. The leaders of the group were handcuffed, their faces twisted with anger as they were dragged away. Chris collapsed to his knees, his body shaking with relief and fear all at once. Keanu bent down and held his friend's shoulder firmly. "It's over," he whispered. "They can't hurt you anymore." Michael handed the papers to the officers, his face weary but proud. "These documents, and Chris's testimony, they'll expose everything. Their power ends tonight." The ride back was quiet, but this time the silence carried hope instead of fear. Chris leaned against the car window, tears streaming down his face. "I don't deserve this chance," he whispered. Keanu shook his head. "You deserve more than a chance. You deserve dignity. You deserve life back. You once gave me strength when I had nothing, Chris. Tonight, the world reminded you that kindness always circles back. It never dies." In the days that followed, news outlets exploded with the story. Headlines spoke of corruption exposed, of powerful men finally brought down. But Keanu didn't care for the cameras or the praise. He cared only for the quiet victories. The first night Chris slept in a real bed again. The first meal he ate without fear of tomorrow. The first smile that returned to his face after years of being lost. Weeks later, Chris walked into a community center where Keanu had arranged a small job for him. The staff greeted him warmly. Not as a homeless man, not as someone broken, but as someone who mattered. As Keanu stood at the doorway, watching his friend take his first steps into a new life, he felt a deep peace inside. He had given back what was once given to him: belief, loyalty, and love. The journey had begun with a chance meeting on a dark street, but it ended with something brighter than either of them could have imagined. Redemption, respect, and a reminder that kindness, no matter how small, could change the world. And for Keanu, it was proof once again that the roles he played on screen were nothing compared to the heroism found in simple human acts. Standing by a friend, protecting the forgotten, and choosing love over fear.